Hi Year 12s, this video is all about your research task for Gourmet to Go. As always, it is a 500 word limit, and being a research task, it is vital that you in-text reference your sources and have a detailed reference list. If there's anything that you read but you don't end up using it, you can have also a bibliography which shows, you know what, I read this but I didn't end up actually using it. So you can have a reference list and a bibliography if needed. Now, being a research, it is important that you have some primary sources if you're aiming for a decent grade, particularly if you're aiming for the A grade band. I would suggest aiming for 2 primary sources, right? And that can be 2 people that you interview or speak to, or it could be 1 person you speak with and another could be an observation of a cafe or a food establishment. Let's have a look at some other tips here. It just says primary research is valuable. Do you know someone you can interview about one or all of the strategies? For example, it could be as simple as someone who works in a cafe that recycles or someone who owns a restaurant that uses organic produce. Can you email or phone them if you can't see them face to face, or use online blogs or do observations in establishment that use your particular greening strategies that you focused on? Now, if you're stuck for where to go to look or who to speak with, then refer back to the PowerPoint that we went through at the start, because there I gave some tips about cafes and restaurants in Adelaide that do use lots of these strategies, so they would be a good place to start. There was also a link to an article that had some information about different places as well, so refer back to them if you're stuck with where to look and you're thinking all of these cafes, they don't use any of my strategies. Go to the places I've suggested. The actual structure, the aim, so making sure you just copy that from the task sheet. Introduction is very brief, only 2 to 3 sentences max. First of all, a sentence outlining the importance of greening or being environmentally considerate or sustainable, and why it would be considered by a business, particularly a food business. So something as simple as considering greening strategies is important for a food business because, and then whatever you find in your research. You know, it's important for customers, or it's important to save money, or whatever other reason you find, and reference that. Then you're going to state the strategies that you suggest a pasta business could implement. So you might then go on to say, it is suggested for a small pasta business that they consider this and this and this strategy. Full stop. Make sure the ones you mention are the ones you're going to write about below, because you've then introduced them. Then you're going to have strategy 1 and write what it is, whether it's recycling, organic produce, local produce, energy efficient lighting, water, whatever else. Just state what it is. And this is the set out that you're going to use to guide you, or tick off that you've got all of these things in your paragraph. You can have 3 strategies, all right? If you find you're going way over the word count and you'd prefer to go in depth about 2, that is okay. So 2 to 3 strategies. Firstly, you need to explain what it is, all right? So recycling is this, this, and this, you know, what it involves, kind of defining or explaining what it is. Secondly, how it be applied to a small pasta business, okay? So this doesn't particularly have to be something that you research. This can be you using your knowledge to think, how would this actually be applied? All right, so this up here would definitely be something you reference. Then you might follow with a sentence like this would be applied in a small pasta business by recycling their glass tomato sauce bottles, or whatever, you know, the cardboard boxes, and etc., etc. All right, so suggesting how it could be applied. Then you want to look at the consequences it could have, positive and negative. Now, if you can, in your research, when you look at the strategy, you want to weigh up and find within that and critically sort of pick out what are some of the benefits that they talk about with using this strategy. On the other hand, is there costs or drawbacks, or does it take a significant amount of time to complete this strategy? If so, you could mention that as a negative. All right, this is where you show critical analysis. So not only are you applying it to a business, but you're looking at what would it actually mean for them in the running. Would it be a positive for this, this, and this reason? However, it's a negative because upfront it's quite expensive, or it's going to mean they need 2 extra bins, or it's going to mean that they need to take more time or care or change their menu more frequently, etc. All right, so positives and negatives. Then it would be good to include some primary examples. Now, this doesn't have to be at the end of the paragraph. If you think it fits in somewhere else better, that's fine, but it would be great to have some primary examples. So you might, once you've talked about this, then go on to say, at the seasonal garden, they use this strategy by doing this, this, and this. All right, or in Cafe Primo, recycling is implemented by this, this, and this. All right, so you're then using a primary example of how the strategy can actually be used in a food business. It doesn't have to be pasta, but a food business definitely. It can also be an observation, like I said, or something that you've gotten from one of your sources. If you're stuck with how to word, this blue section just gives you some ideas of how you can start your sentences. Obviously, this is talking about reducing energy consumption, which may or may not be relevant, but it gives you an idea of how to structure your sentence if you get stuck. All right, so that's there if you need it. You then basically repeat for strategy 2 and strategy 3 if you have a third one. And a conclusion is just a 1 to 2 sentence brief overview of what you've covered. It's not essential if you've already hit the word limit and you're struggling, but if you do have enough words, you can simply write a sentence or two just to summarise. Then, of course, a full reference list and in-text referencing is a must. Okay? Hopefully that all makes sense, and if you had any further questions, please ask.